Hey y'all, it's Mary Hyatt, and I'm so excited you're here for this month's topic, which is all about necessary endings. It's October, y'all, and as the old saying goes, the trees are about to show us how lovely it is to let dead things go. This month, we're going to be able to explore how to release the things, people, habits, and behaviors that are no longer serving us, and to ultimately stop watering our dead plants. All right, y'all, it is going to be good, so let's get into it.
Welcome to the Living Fully Alive podcast with Mary Hyatt. Here to help you find your authentic voice, learn how to love yourself, and embrace your life. And now, your host, life and mindset coach, body love advocate, and doTERRA presidential diamond, Mary Hyatt.
Hey everybody, it is Mary, and I am so excited for today's episode because every month I have the opportunity to bring on a part-time co-host where I get to have a very candid conversation around the topic of the month, and you never really know what's going to come forward. So typically I'm sitting with my BFF Lindsley, and y'all know we get into it, and it's so fun to have those conversations. But I'm bringing on somebody a little different today. Maybe you've heard me talk about him. Maybe you've heard me brag about him, but my sweet, sweet love, Bentley Caldwell, is on the show today, guys. Give a...
Who?
It's you.
Oh, me.
It's really you.
Cool.
Give a round of applause, please, and welcome my other BF, not BFF, but my boyfriend, Bentley. Hey, babe. Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Guys, before I hop into this with Bentley, I want to encourage you to go back and listen to last week's episode because I introduced our topic of necessary endings, and we got into sort of the foundation level about being October, being this month where we're being encouraged, just looking at nature and how all the leaves are starting to change and let go of what they've been holding to create space for spring, for newness, for new life, for new leaves. And we are being invited into that same letting go process, that same release, looking at our lives and determining what is no longer serving us so we can create space for an even better life, even more joy, more abundance, more love, all the good things that we want. But we first have got to make space. So go back and listen to that episode, and of course, share this with your girlfriends because we're about to hear the sultry sounds, the sultry voice of Bentley. You really should have been like a radio host.
What? With this voice? I don't think so.
Maybe we can talk about that. That's your next career move.
My next career move. Voiceover.
Bentley,
Mm-hmm.
I would love to hear a quick little list of the different careers you've had in your lifetime.
Man, let's see. My first job was retail. So, well, I guess the different identities. We'll start there.
Perfect.
So I was an athlete in middle school and high school. Then my first job was retail. American Eagle, what up? Kentucky Oaks Mall, Paducah, Kentucky, what up?
I'm not sure there's anybody that can...
You know what? We'll open it up. We'll broaden it. And then let's see. After that, I did that all through college. And then when I graduated, I moved to Korea, and I was a English teacher, conversational English teacher. And then I tried to be an actor at one point. Wow, let's see what else. Then most of you guys probably know this, musician. And then I started doing modeling and acting. And now I am a men's personal stylist or men's stylist. So, yeah. And who knows what's going to happen in the next 2 years or so.
It's a long life.
I just
2 years. I'm thinking the rest of your life. I mean,
well, yeah, no. I mean, it changes so quickly. So
that's true.
Who knows? It'll be something new or something close to what I'm doing, and then just a little variation of it. So,
well, and you're somebody who you grow rapidly.
Yeah. Rapid growth, rapid change, which is good, but also
It's a little bit of whiplash.
Yeah. But I'd rather it be rapid than like slow.
Yeah.
You know, I just like let's do it. Let's get it done, and let's move on.
That's why you and I get along.
Yes.
We're both that way. Okay, so let's go back because as we're talking about necessary endings, I think I've had the privilege to get to see you through like several different transitions in your professional life and in your personal life. And I can remember this moment so freaking clearly. So I met you as a musician. And I would just like to share with the public that I vowed never to date a musician. And then I saw this guy.
No, she heard the voice. That's what it was.
I literally was like, I hope to God he can sing because he's so cute. Thank God he did. He's a phenomenal voice. But I was like, I don't know. That like, do I just pretend it's not good? Do I pretend it's, all right? What do I do? But thankfully, I think I actually.
Thankfully, I didn't suck. So.
Yeah, I did stalk you. I think, but I was like, I gotta know. I gotta know. So I met you as a musician, and you did some amazing things in that career. I mean, you won several awards. You played at like literally iconic places in Nashville that people only dream of playing.
Yeah. And
then the kind of final thing that I got to experience with you was a world tour to the UK.
Yeah.
Which is pretty awesome.
It was really awesome. That was crazy.
But something very interesting happened. And I can remember this conversation. We were in our living room. And I don't know if you remember this, but you were like, babe, I think I'm done with music. And you were like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like you really didn't know like what was going to be next.
Yeah.
But it was very clear to you. That, and I honestly, like when I met you, you had all these dreams to win a Grammy. Like you were going to take it.
Oh yeah, no,
I
was taking it all the way. Like I had a whole list of all the things I was going to do music wise. Like win a Grammy. I was going to play the closing ceremony of the Olympics. Like,
oh wow, I never remember. Oh no,
there was a whole list somewhere. I wrote it down. Like I put it up on my like mirror. Like I was looking at it every day. I was going to write. I think I had like write the theme to a James Bond movie or something. It was just like random stuff like that. But I was full in. I was all in.
So this was kind of like it felt like a really big deal for you to get to that place where you were willing to say, I'm done with this. So walk me through that process of like how you knew it was the right time to walk away.
I think for me, actually that tour, the UK tour was like, well, I'll take it back. So I had been playing with a band, and I was Bentley in the Hustle, and it just got to the point where it was just more of a headache than anything. And nothing against the guys that were in the band. They were all great guys and everything like that. But it was just a thing of being like, this is not fun, And so I ended up dropping the Bentley and the Hustle thing and just going back to being a solo artist in Bentley Caldwell. And I changed kind of my look. So like when I was with the band, I was like wearing like flat bill hats and Vans and like V-neck t-shirts. And when I went back to being Bentley Caldwell, I ended up changing my style quite a bit where, I was wearing like boots and, dark denim and like short sleeve button down shirts and like these full brim hats. Look at you gleaming over there.
No, what I'm loving is this is like, you're telling this story through the lens of a men's personal stylist.
Yeah.
I just love it. I'm like, this is so great.
But it was like it was really cool. It actually helped my career a lot because it was funny. I didn't change the style of music. I just basically changed, how I looked, and then my career kind of took off. And then the big point for me was when I was on tour in the UK. Before every show, I was just like, I just don't want to do this, And it was really just like a mental battle, a mental struggle of being like, I don't want to do this. And then I get on stage and and that'd be fine, and the show would go great, and people would clap, and I'd sign babies and things like that. But
I never saw him sign a baby, y'all.
It was a forehead. I swear, somewhere in Birmingham, the UK. There's a kid with magic marker still on his forehead.
Poor kid.
Poor kid. No, lucky him. No. Anyway, but I think I really had this epiphany while I was over there, because I was looking at like other like bigger artists, and their tour schedule, and I was just like, if I get signed, it doesn't get smaller. Like I don't get signed to a major label and play coffee shops. You know what I'm saying? It was like, if I get signed, it only gets bigger. And I just was like, I don't want to do this. This is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so the UK tour was like the big turning point for me. And so when I came home, I won those awards, and then that was where I was just like, you know what? This seems like a good place to stop. And so,
Wow.
I
Were you afraid?
Was I afraid? Yes and no.
Yeah.
I think, I guess sometimes, I don't want to say always, but, a lot of people are afraid of the unknown.
Right.
Because it's just like, well, what do I do if this is not what I'm doing? Yeah. I think a lot of times, when you've been doing something for so long, and that's how people know you, and that's like your identity, and that's your culture. It's not even so much as your identity. It was like all my friends were musicians.
I was gonna say everything you did was in that industry.
It was music, and it was just like, oh, like what do I do?
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it was just like, I just knew that I really wasn't happy. And so it was like, I have to like make a change. And yeah, that was it.
Which to me is so brave. I mean, when you think about it, like who you were, I mean, people knew you. I mean, we would go out in Nashville and everybody knew who you were. Like we could not go anywhere without you knowing somebody and somebody stopping you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is a lot to give up. Like something that you've constructed, something that you've literally spent hours and hours upon creating and working at. Yeah. And then to say like, this actually isn't enough, or this isn't bringing me joy anymore.
Well, I think, at the end of the day, you have to, outline what your value system is. For me, I never wanted to be famous. So people, quote unquote, knowing me or giving me high fives when they see me in town or whatever, like that wasn't enough for me. Like that wasn't a thing where I was like, oh yeah, like I want to keep feeling that, because it's like, like that is very fleeting, and then two, I will say though, there is something cool about being known.
Of course,
there is something kind of nice about that, but I think for me, it was just not a thing. It wasn't a thing that was going to keep me going.
Yeah.
Like I knew fame wasn't going to keep me going. So,
well, and I just think too, like, you're talking about, I think this is so important for anybody listening as you're maybe contemplating an area of your life where you go, do I want to keep doing this thing that I've constructed? Because a lot of times, I mean, we spend our whole 20s and 30s becoming something, and then we become that thing, and it's like, oh, wait, do I, do I want this? I've been like so busy making myself this person without even questioning, is it
really what I want?
Is it really what I want? And so for you to look at your future, and I think this was like what I took away from your story was looking in your future, and you're saying it's only going to get essentially like worse from here. Essentially like whatever I hate about now is only going to get bigger.
Yeah.
Like the problems are going to get, if I don't like this part, that's going to become a bigger problem.
Yeah.
If I don't like to travel and do touring, I remember that was like, we were like,
oh, it was miserable.
It was brutal.
Like
every day, every 2 days.
Honestly, I would not have been able to do that tour if you hadn't been there, because like I was driving, but like Mary was literally like the navigator, and oh my God, there's so many turnabouts and roundabouts in the UK. So she'd be like, go around to go forward, go like first turn, left turn. And I'm like, oh my God.
I like how you gave me a Southern accent in your.
Oh, we hear it. I mean,
that's our joke.
Turn around and go.
Turn around now.
Yes,
it's not that bad.
Lord.
No, but like that trip was so exhausting.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Like, I mean, a normal day, like a normal show day, was we'd wake up, we'd eat wherever we were staying. We'd hang out for a little bit, like, and when I say a little bit, I mean like maybe an hour or two. Then we'd load up the vehicle, the car that we were with, and that means like we had a suitcase for ourselves, and then a suitcase for like all of like my merch and like this like standing banner and all this stuff. So we'd load up if we weren't staying that night, we'd load up all of our stuff. I'd load up my guitar. All this. We drive to the venue, meet whoever is, in charge there, set up all our stuff. Then we eat and then go back to the venue. I'd sound check, do the show. Then after the show, have to like talk to all the people, which was great, which, I'm grateful for, but talk to all the people, take photos, sign autographs, push merch. And then you have to tear everything back down, load everything back up.
Yeah, as a nightmare.
And then you look at the clock and you're like, oh, it's 11 o'clock and we haven't eaten since 5. Oh, and we're also in a foreign country and there's not a McDonald's or anything that's open late. And so you're like, I guess we'll be eating out of the snack bag.
I don't know that we had constructed we didn't
have a snack bag yet.
But I think what's so interesting, so last week on the episode, I talked about your saying, I don't think you created it, but
I probably did.
No, it definitely did not originate from you, but I use it, which is the juice worth the squeeze?
Oh no, I didn't originate that, but yeah.
Right. Okay. So, but it's you're the first person I heard that from, and I love that saying of like, okay, is the juice worth the squeeze? And even though that moment, that hour and a half that you were on stage brought you a lot of joy, you factor in all the different things that were required in order to create that short moment of joy.
Yeah.
And it was like, if you could boil it down, it's like the juice was not worth the squeeze. There was too much squeeze to get a few drops of the juice.
Exactly.
So it's like, no. But I think what I want to like rewind and focus on, because I think this is so helpful for anyone listening, is this idea of having to leave an old identity to create a new one in your future, like to step into this unknown of this future self that you haven't yet spent the time to construct. And so there's this kind of weird, like in between moment where you now are not a musician, even though that awkwardness of people thinking you still are,
right?
And having to explain like, actually, I'm not doing this anymore. Right. And I've been a part of a lot of those conversations, and it's like, oh, this is so awkward to like, like, actually, whatever. So then
people still coming up to me wanting me to sign their baby's foreheads and stuff.
That's real awkward.
I'm like, oh God, get this child away from me. Jeez.
No, but like,
I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Sorry guys, this is how it is. This was like hanging out at home.
Oh, my goodness.
No, but like you moving into this season of sort of like, let's call it temporary, because I remember there was a time before you knew you wanted to do men's personal styling where it was like, literally, I don't know what I'm going to do. So in that moment, as you were literally like letting this old self die and not yet fully like birthed into the new self, like if you think about a caterpillar, there is that moment where, you think people go, oh, it goes from caterpillar to butterfly. Well, no, there's this moment that literally the caterpillar liquefies in the cocoon and becomes goo. Like skeletal structure, everything like literally becomes a liquid before, and it's the same DNA, but before it builds and becomes a butterfly. So talk to me about the goo stage of like this weird in between where you're no longer the musician, but you haven't yet birthed Bentley personal stylist. Like, was there grief there? Was there questioning there? Was there doubt there? Was that like, I want this to be realistic. Like, what are people going to expect? Hey, y'all. I'm sure you've been hearing me mention my Fully Alive Circle membership, and you might be wondering what it is and how you can join. So let me tell you a little bit about it. So the Circle membership is a safe place for women to gather together in a heart-centered community to take this deep dive into personal transformation. So it's my online membership where you'll learn how to find yourself again through daily devotional practices. Inside of our private Facebook group, I share resources like guided meditations, yoga practices, essential oil recipes, journal prompts, and so much more that dive into our monthly topic that we explore right here on the Living Fully Alive podcast. And all those resources are delivered to your inbox weekly to help you create powerful change in your life. So if you're looking for an affordable way to continue your journey of living fully alive, then definitely check out the Fully Alive Circle membership. Just go to maryhyatt.com/circle and you can find out all the details and join. All right, now back to this week's episode.
I think for me, and I will preface this by saying every person's story, every person's situation is different, because everybody has a different take on life. I knew for me personally that I could not live a life of being a musician any longer.
Yeah.
I think it was a thing of I had grown, and that career, that lifestyle, that whole image just didn't fit my personal belief system anymore.
Yeah.
And so it was like necessary for me. Like it was like, for me to live, I have to let this go.
Sounds like a necessary ending.
What?
We do need little buttons.
I know, right?
Sound
You're gonna
effects.
have just like have a DJ in here. It's like, okay, push the button now. Anyway, no. And so for me, moving from what I had dedicated my life to just being in this like, okay, like, what's next? What do I do? It was a little like, I don't know. So for me, what I had to do was I had to just go back to the basics and just like ask myself, like, what is it that brings you joy? Because I think a lot of times people confuse happiness and joy. Like I think joy. Let's put it this way. Happiness is a being thing, like, oh, I got this new thing, I'm happy, but joy is like a state of which you live in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like you could have a bad day and still be a joyful person.
Right.
Happiness is kind of fleeting. It's like, oh, I'm happy. Oh, I'm sad. Oh, I'm happy. Oh, I'm sad. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, so for me, I had to go, okay, what is it that brings me joy?
Yeah.
Because for me, music no longer brought me joy. And you were talking about it earlier. It was like, was all that stuff worth the 1 hour of happiness?
Right.
And it was like, no, it wasn't. And so for me, I had to go, okay, what is it that brings me joy? And just get back to the root, to the base of what it is, and so, and so there was a little bit of grieving, you know what I'm saying? Cause you're like, I did enjoy playing music.
Yeah.
It took me all across the world, I met some amazing people, it's just like, there is no better feeling than being on stage and performing and like, like just that energy of just being like, oh man, here I am. And people are looking at you and you're playing your songs and, but again, it was just like, that didn't bring me joy. It just made me happy,
That's such an important distinction.
Yeah.
And, I just think like who you are today is not the person I met when I met him 4 years ago.
4 years ago?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, but like I just remember thinking and still think it's like we all change. I mean, you specifically like have changed so much. I mean, I've changed too, like in our relationship. But I think there's this idea, this evolution of like where I'm going, this can't take me there.
Yeah.
Like who I know I want to be, like this doesn't fit. It's like puzzle pieces. It's like this puzzle piece doesn't fit to make the puzzle of my future.
Yeah. It doesn't align.
It doesn't align. Right.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it is a thing of being like, evolution is necessary.
Yeah.
You know, like you
Growth
have to
is
evolve.
happiness.
Like you have to evolve, you know, and it's like if you meet someone, you know, and then you meet them, you see them again 2 years later and they're literally in the same space and same place that they were in when you met them, run as fast as you can, get out of there, because they're not about growth. They're not about life. Life is growing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and okay. So then back to your original question too. I think, yeah, like I said, I sat down, I reevaluated kind of what it was that brought me joy. And then I just figured out a way to make it a career.
Well, and I want to back up too, actually, because I think this is important to mention that you did, that maybe you didn't even know that you were doing. But I noticed, and I got to see you like in this pursuit of joy, you started doing things that actually were joyful for you that had nothing to do with a career. Mm-hmm. Like you started playing sports again. Mm-hmm. You started doing things that it was almost like so grounding for you, of like you said, go back to the basics. Like you really did like go back to the basics. Mm-hmm. Like you stripped everything in the life that you had and you went back to bare bones basics. Yeah. Of like, let me hear myself again.
Yeah. Well, it's just about finding your peace.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like if you are in this internal turmoil or this internal battle or struggle between what you are and what you want to be, it's like, okay, like when you step away from what you are to go and be what you want to be, it's like, okay, well, let's get back to finding your peace.
It's almost like neutral.
Yeah, it's like let's drop it back down to neutral. Let's idle for a second.
I mean, you took like a legit time out.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah,
which was so brave and so necessary.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah, I had to. Like, I don't want to think of what Bentley would have been like if Bentley would have stayed a musician. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've just been bitter. You know, I would have been a true Hollywood story if something like Behind the Music VH1. You know, it would have been Bad News Bears. You know, you know, but I think ultimately it was. I mean, it was such the right decision.
But okay, I want to paint the picture because I think this is so valuable. I mean, like this is why I was like, he's got to come and talk about this because you like that? You like this compliment?
Thank you. Keep it coming. Thank you.
No, you stop. No, you stop.
Stop.
But like I remember this so clearly, and I know we're having the green light to be vulnerable, but here we go.
Here we are.
But no, I remember you being like frustrated, even though I know you knew instinctively, intuitively, like to take that time off. It was hard for you. Like I felt like you had that feeling of like, I better hurry up and get to the next thing, and that pressure to like figure it out. And I remember that being really powerful over you, of that fear, like that you had to kind of go, it's okay to take the time to figure this out, because there was that voice coming in that was like, hurry up, you better figure it out, everybody's waiting on you, you know. And I'm so glad that you were able to work through that voice to actually take the time you needed to slow down and listen.
You know, you hear there are voices where you're just like, oh, you failed, you know, like you were telling, because I mean, I was telling everybody and their mother, anybody who would listen, you know, oh, I'm going to sell out the Ryman and I'm going to do all these things and da-da-da-da-da. And then I didn't do any of those things, you know, like, and I made a conscious effort just like to not, you know, and it was like, oh, you know, and so, there were the voices of like, what's the next step? Like, dude, you got to do something, you got to, you know. And then also those voices of, wow, did you failed. You didn't do what you said you were going to do.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't win a Grammy. You didn't write
that,
this
like,
James Bond,
self-judgment.
theme. Yeah, you didn't sell out the rhyming. You didn't
Mm-hmm.
do this, that, and the other.
And even that questioning of like, and I know I've felt this so many times, like, do I have what it takes? Like, can I actually be successful? Can I actually do this thing? Like, I walked away from this, or can I do it again?
Yeah. And that's another thing too. Yeah. Just that question of, can I do this again? Do I have what it takes? Do I have the energy? Do I want to make the sacrifices again? Do I want to,
Yeah.
And I think it always just boils down to like, get busy living, man, But yeah, there were definitely some voices screaming at me, just, are you going to be successful? What are people going to say? What are people going to do? What are you going to do?
It's humbling, isn't it?
Yeah, but
and not in like a
like
I don't mean that in like a abasing way, but
I
mean like humbling in that, like, when you begin again, which is one of those phrases that you've taught me, which I love, like, begin again. When you begin again, there's this like humbling of being willing to start over, being willing to start from the beginning, being willing to be a newbie, to be a baby.
Yeah.
When you've like taken your career to this point where you're like where you were in your music career, you were not a baby.
No.
And so to then say, okay, this is not bringing me joy. I am literally going to go back to the beginning and start over for something that at this point I believe can bring me more joy.
Yeah, but
it's big.
I this is gonna be funny, but I got an old Chinese proverb out of a fortune cookie one time.
Ooh.
Yeah, but it was just so brilliant. But it said the expert at anything was once a beginner.
Yep.
And so it's just like, and for me that just kind of just has stuck with me. With everything I've done, where it's like, okay, like, I was a beginner guitar player. I was a beginner vocalist. I was a beginner, performer, and was able to, elevate myself, So it's like, if you can do it with one thing, you can do it with another thing.
Yes.
And it's like all hard work leads to profit.
Yeah.
And
you
it's
remind
like,
me of that often. I'm so grateful.
And it's like, there's nothing, if you put in the work, it will be fruitful.
Yeah.
But obviously at the beginning you're like, but I don't know.
Right.
But it's like, no. Like, just start.
Well, and I think that for me, I have to remind myself of like two really important truths. You ready for these?
Number one.
Tee it up, baby. Tee it up.
Excuse me, these are Mary's two important truths. Number one, Mary, you're on.
Number one is, thank you. I really like
you're welcome. Like that. You like how my voice went off radio.
I know.
Too.
I was like, ooh, I like it.
Well, hello. No. Anyway,
excuse me
number
while I
one.
Pause this podcast. We'll be back in a few minutes. Number one is that I am fully resourceful.
That's good.
And like hyphen to this is I am the asset. Like, if I've done it before, I can do it again. Like if I have essentially figured out some of those keys to success, I'm fully resourceful. And if I don't know, I can figure it out. I mean, that's to me what resourceful means. So I'm fully resourceful. That's first truth.
I like it.
Tee it up.
Number two.
Thank you.
Mary Hyatt.
Number two is I don't work alone.
That's good.
So like whenever I get in that place of being afraid that I can't do it again, or that I had that kind of imposter syndrome thing, it's like, oh, wait a second. I'm in partnership and I forgot. Let me remember that I do not work alone. Like, I get to be in partnership with my higher power, with source, and that this is not up to me to have to figure out every single little detail and know the how of it and know the steps to take. It's like, no, oftentimes I don't know, and I have to ask for assistance, ask for support, ask for it to be shown to me, be led, be guided. And the truth is, I always have been. Always. And then I've had to walk away from some really hard things that I didn't have the clarity of what was going to be on the other side of it.
Yeah.
But just that remembering of like, number one, I'm fully resourceful. Number 2, I'm not alone. I'm in
I'm
partnership.
going to add a third one.
And number 3 from Bentley Caldwell.
That was good. That was
I
good.
tried.
That was good. It was very Casey Kasem.
Oh, okay. I'll take it.
But number 3 to add to that is I am enough.
Yes. Amen. Preach, brother.
Because a lot of times what we do, we think is our identity, and what we do is not who we are.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like stepping off stage and stepping away from the quote unquote limelight. I was still Bentley Caldwell.
Right. That didn't change your worth or your value or your enoughness.
Yeah. It's like, no, I'm still, capable of love. I'm still allowed to be love, even if I'm not on stage.
Yeah.
Performing for people.
Yeah. Actually, nothing about who you are changed.
Exactly.
Just what you were doing externally shifted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I would add number 3, you are enough.
Yeah.
What you do is not who you are.
So good. I'm just
I'm leaving. Bye.
And mic drop now. Okay. So this is I'm just kind of almost like processing as we're talking about it. So it's so like, yes, this is so true. And I'm thinking about that move from old identity to new identity.
Mm-hmm.
How do you move from like this old version of yourself to a new version? Like, how do you step into an updated, up-leveled, upgraded version of yourself?
I would say first, again, you got to be true to yourself.
Yeah.
If you are in internal conflict every day you wake up, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough sledding, So it's like, get true to yourself, And then also too, it's a thing of just like, daring yourself to be better. You don't have to, everybody wants to do this whole like complete 180 switch around,
right.
And it's like, no, like if you take a table and you flip it 180, it's going to be chaos. Everything on the table is going to be all over the place, whatever. But it's just like, what you want to do is just focus on making gradual shifts.
Yeah.
Like 2 degree shifts, because I think that just makes the transition from this old you to this new you easier. Like it's not going to be super easy, but it'll make it a lot easier to do that.
Yep.
I think it also is putting yourself in some uncomfortable situations. When I went from music into fashion, I was like, I knew enough because I'd worked retail, but I didn't know anything about suiting. I didn't know anything about tailoring. I didn't know, because I was coming from American Eagle. I was like, American Eagle sell suits, sell crappy flannel. Anyway,
Yep.
Shout out to the Eagle. So I had to put myself in uncomfortable situations of learning, like having to learn how people do what they do, and having to just doing a deep dive into something that I was foreign to me, and was it uncomfortable? Yeah. But like the life that you want is on the other side of that uncomfortable feeling, and so I think that is one thing you have to do as well, is just put yourself in some uncomfortable situations for growth. Now, don't just put yourself in an uncomfortable situation just because you should be like, oh yeah, I just wanted to do this just because this is the story. Like, no, don't be dumb. But like,
you heard it here first. Don't be dumb.
Don't be dumb. But no, like definitely put yourself in some uncomfortable situations for growth. Step outside of your comfort zone a little bit to put yourself to where you need to be. It's like, you can't, if you want something new, you have to do something different.
And I think that's like so helpful to remember, is that you can shift those things at any time. Like how you've always done it doesn't mean it has to be that way forever. And I think one of the things that I teach my clients to do is when they talk about this old version of themselves, to identify it as the old version. Instead of saying like, I do XYZ, say my old self did it that way. So
like
really
that.
making that distinction of like, that was my old identity. So my old self would have felt fearful about this. My old self would have panicked about this. My old self would have reacted out of fear from this. My old self would have pursued this for love. My old self would have rejected this out of a fear of being abandoned. My old, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And then my new self chooses to do. So it's almost like taking that power back of saying like, whatever I'm going to be and who I'm like walking towards becoming. Because like you said, it's not a 180. We don't just like instantly go, okay, I'm going to leave this one thing. And then all of a sudden have arrived. There's a journey to get there. But if we start beginning to think about who we're becoming, it's like, how would that person handle this situation? How would that person interpret what's happening? How would that person show up in this? And how would they live their life? What would their habits look like? What would their beliefs look like? And then saying, I choose to act in accordance with my future self. So that was my old self. Like, oh, I used to do this. I used to be afraid of this. I mean, that used to could literally be a minute ago. Like that's my old self was 5 minutes ago. So even if 5 minutes ago I would have freaked out about something, in this moment, it's like, if I can access my future self, she would deal with this totally differently. So I'm going to choose to act as my future self. And as we do, we become that future self.
I mean, it's basically just a change of mindset.
Totally.
You know, back to your question as well, I also had to change who I was around. You know, like, and I'm not saying like go and get a whole new friend group and all this stuff, but it's like,
maybe you need to,
but maybe you should. But sometimes you do.
Sometimes you do.
But yeah, no, I ended up having to change who I was around. Like if I'm trying to get out of the music industry, I can't keep hanging out with people in the music industry. You know? And it's just like, and it's just that thing of, you know, like, again, I was going into starting a business. Well, let me get around more business-minded people who have started businesses, who have thriving businesses. You know, because
the people who you want to emulate, essentially.
Exactly. You know, and so for me, it was like, I'm going into the fashion world. Well, let me get around more fashion-minded people, more fashion-forward people, you know, more creative people, you know, in a different aspect, you know. And so it's like, if you're transitioning from one space to another, you know, it's like if you're going to, I speak in sports analogy sometimes, but if you're going to go from being a football player to a basketball player, you know, like you can't go and do football training and expect that to come over into the basketball, you know, into the basketball, you know, it's not even the same thing. And it's the same with, you know, your career path, even, you know, I guess even in relationships too.
I was going to even say, like, honestly, just even like in personal growth, like the amount of people that I've had to walk away from because there was a certain level of unhealth or toxicity or abuse or whatever it might be. It's like that dynamic and that way of living does not support who I am wanting to become. It's that old saying of like, you're the average of the 5 closest people to you. And if you look around and you go, whoa, everybody that's around me that I spend my time with is complaining about their lives. They hate where they are. They're dramatic. They see the worst out of life. That's going to be my outlook too.
Exactly.
It's like osmosis. I can only hold that other space. It's the opposite of that, like positivity and growth for so long. It's oil and water. Yeah.
And you'll feel it, you know, once you start growing and you try to go hang out with your old girlfriends or, you know, your old friends or whatever, you know, it's
you said old girlfriends.
I know most of the women or listeners are women. So I had your old girlfriend, shoo, you know what I mean? I was like, I'm trying to be inclusive.
God. I like it. It's cute.
Just leave me alone. Quit bullying me. But no, like when you start growing and you want to share these things with these people and they're like looking at you crazy, that's usually a telltale of being like, okay, like this I've outgrown this friendship.
Yeah.
You know, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's literally nothing wrong with that. Yeah. You know, if you watch a lot of the moguls, like I think of Jay-Z, for example. Like when Jay-Z first started, he was just some kid from New York. He was wanting to be this rapper, so he was wearing like the big fat gold chains, and he was doing all this stuff with all these industry people. But Jay-Z wanted a bigger and better life, and so if you watch his progression through his career, he has let go of certain people that he held very close to his chest, like Dame Dash and even Kanye, and now he's like almost a billionaire, like rap mogul, and it's like Jay-Z would not be where he is today if he tried to take those people who didn't have the vision with him,
Yep.
And so it's like, so it's like if you're going from one place to another, not everybody can come with you.
Yeah.
And like that's hard.
I know. I was gonna say it's a hard pill to swallow, but it's true.
But it's a necessary pill to swallow.
It is.
Because it's like not everyone can come with you. But the thing is, the people that you will meet on the other side, are gonna be better suited for what you're doing.
And you never know who you inspire along the way, too. Like I've had people who I've had to kind of like walk away, and maybe they were slower in their journey.
Yeah.
But the fact that I went ahead, that they were so, like I've had literally people say, I'm so grateful. Like I've watched your journey since the beginning, and you've given me hope that I can do it too. Even if they weren't ready at that moment to do it with me, that just by seeing me do it, it gives them that hope that, hey, somebody I know did it. Which means I can do it too. It's like borrowing that belief.
Well, you never know who's looking.
You don't.
You never know who's watching. You never know. You know what you put out, but you don't know what people receive.
Yeah, it's so true. Which is why you've got to be good and good to people.
Oh my gosh, I knew you were gonna do
So guys, just to end this, Bentley and I have this ongoing thing. So Bentley is like a man of many quotes, and he says things that are like just like mic drop things, right? Or just things he repeats often. So I don't know why I started doing this, but it's like a little tease now. I'll start repeating his own words and phrases back to him and pretend that they're mine. And I'll be like, that's what I've been always saying, man. Just be good and good to people, which is something he always has said.
I always say that. But so half the stuff you guys hear on this podcast, I've probably said before at home.
Hey, I really do try to give you credit on the podcast at least. So
sure.
I just had to throw that in there just to,
I knew it was happening. It
was gonna. Hey, but I did say the whole juice.
Yeah, that wasn't mine though.
The squeeze, but at least I said I learned this from Bentley.
I appreciate that.
So,
and then she takes my actual quotes as her own though. It's cool.
We're a team, babe. We're a team.
Is that how it works? Okay.
Guys, I am so just like grateful that you hung out in this candid conversation, and hopefully even if you're not in the music industry and you're not leaving a music career, you still found so many nuggets and gems. It's universal.
Works for all careers, all transitions. I mean, I wouldn't say careers. I mean, just transitions. Like, you always just want to live fully alive, guys. Like I always say.
Oh boy, here he goes. Well, there you have it. You heard it here first. If you want to live fully alive with Bentley Caldwell, then
you should see my website. It's white and pink, and I had to get a new one.
Lord have mercy. All right, next month will be Lindsley. Lindsley's coming back. You aren't invited. No,
rude.
Guys. Well, I should say Bentley. Thank you.
No problem.
I like talking to you.
No, same.
You're kind of cute.
Oh my gosh. Okay. You're kind of cute too, girl.
Guys, next week I'm excited because I'm
back.
Bentley is not back, y'all. I have a new guest who is a therapist. He focuses on relationships, and we're going to be talking about what it looks like to talk about necessary endings in the form of partnerships. And that doesn't mean like necessarily only divorce. Like we're going to get into just the kind of natural progressions that relationships goes through over time, and having to kind of continue to create new versions inside of the same relationship. It's going to be a really powerful conversation. So I hope you'll tune into that. But until then, remember that the purpose of life is to be grateful.
I've been saying that for years.
To be great and to be full. I was hoping you knew that enough to finish it, but you didn't.
I didn't know that one.
All right,
I must
y'all.
have forgotten that one when I told it to you.
All right, we are signing off, and I'll see y'all next week. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you got some amazing nuggets to take home and start implementing into your life. And if you're looking for the show notes and links, head on over to maryhyatt.com/show. And if you loved it, why not bring your girlfriends along this journey of becoming fully alive with you? Just give a quick share of this episode to your social channels and enjoy those debriefing convos with your besties. Thanks again, and I can't wait to connect with you next week.